Last week, I traveled to Los Angeles for Summer Games Fest Playdays, where I got to play a lot of different games, but the one I was looking forward to the most was definitely Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, and today, I get to tell you all about it. I got a 30-minute presentation that went through story mode and custom battles, and then I had another 30 minutes where I could play the game and capture it for myself. And then I got COVID, which is why my voice sounds like this. But that's not going to stop me from telling you what this is all about, so let's start with story mode. Now, this appointment came right after we all saw the release date trailer, which is where we learned that you could pick branching stories. You could choose to do something that Goku didn't in the Dragon Ball canon. Something that might cause him to go Super Saiyan in the fight against Vegeta, for example. That's really cool. Well, there is more. Turns out that story mode won't just have those options for Goku, there will be 8 characters in total to choose from, each one with their own story. This isn't new to Tenkaichi, but if you add that to the branching paths that each story might take, suddenly you have a gigantic single-player story mode. They didn't say who the other characters were, but they did confirm that Goku would have the biggest story of them all, and that for the first time with Goku's story, you're gonna go through the entirety of Dragon Ball Z into Dragon Ball Super. Also, do you remember seeing those first-person shots during the trailer? Well, turns out that's controlled by the player. Every time you have a cutscene like this, you can pretty much just toggle at will between the director's camera or the first-person view. You can go back and forth as many times as you want. So that was already impressive, but what came afterwards actually blew my mind. Let's talk about custom battles. So here, you can set up a battle with custom rules. You can give each team certain handicaps and whatnot, but it goes so far beyond what we're used to. You can set up dialogue events. For instance, the example they showed, we had Vegeta asking Beerus to train him so he could surpass Goku. If you just swap Vegeta out for Mr. Satan, you can have the exact same scene play out, and just have Beerus telling Mr. Satan, okay, let's do it. You can also set up events that happen mid-fight, that happen whenever your character or your opponent meet a certain condition. For example, let's say one of you reaches 30% health, it triggers an event. What's that event? You can choose what it is. And the amount of options that were on screen were honestly too much for me to keep track of. It really felt like I was watching a build-your-own-story type game mode. Or utilizing those tools, you could also just make your own raid boss type challenge. The amount of tools that this has seems insane. And then you can create these and share them with other players. So thanks to this mode, you kind of have unlimited single-player content as long as the community keeps building it. And that is actually genius. I can't wait to spend 3 or more hours messing with all these menus only to give up and play the most popular levels that someone else built. And one final quick note before we jump into my gameplay. The game has finally confirmed split-screen offline multiplayer via the Hyperbolic Time Chamber. And I asked if this was just the name of the split-screen game mode, if we could actually play in other stages, and the answer is no. With no room for misinterpretation, they told me you can only play split-screen in the Hyperbolic Time Chamber stage. What this tells me is that they didn't plan for split-screen to begin with, but after seeing everyone demand it, they actually managed to pull it off, even if it was something limited as this. And after playing the game, I wonder if this was a performance issue of sorts. Because when you first pick up this game, you will notice environment destruction is just way more than you're expecting. Things are breaking and exploding all the time. So by having split screen in the emptiest map in Dragon Ball history, that would make sense if performance was the issue. Because now you have 2 cameras, but you don't have to worry about all of that destruction anymore. Alright, let's jump into gameplay. I had 30 minutes of gameplay against the CPU. No training mode, no PvP, so with 30 minutes of gameplay, you can probably get around 4 total games, meaning that this was hardly enough to tell you how good or bad this game will be in the long term. But it's more than enough to give you a first impression. And I really like this game. Does it play like Tenkaichi? Yes. It maybe feels a little less raw, a little less manual, but maybe that's just the nature of those older games. Once you start adding enough effects and animation, things start to feel heavier, and that's what this game feels like, a heavier Tenkaichi. You also find that a lot of the combos you used to do in the past, they still work exactly the same in this game. And that's impressive given how much the core mechanics actually changed. For instance, this is me just pressing the square button with Goku. He goes into a vanish combo, ignore the final key blast. If you know anything about combos in Tenkaichi, you know what this means. I think characters don't have a second rush combo anymore, but I can't really confirm that with the time I had, because you can do more after this square combo. For instance, with Piccolo, I was able to get this extra vanishing attack, and I'm sure you can also do a homing dash and a few other options too. In fact, one of my favorite things about Sparking Zero is that I was improvising combos easier than ever before, and things actually worked. For instance, right here, look at how I'm able to keep this combo going by just shooting a couple of key blasts. That combo counter never dropped. You could definitely combo with key blasts back in Tenkaichi, but never as relaxed as this. And that really made me wonder how far we can push this game. The best thing I can say about it right now is that it left me wanting to try a bunch of different things, because every time I tried something, the game would actually let me do it, and I love that freedom. Now, one place where I feel like the game got a nerf over the previous Tenkaichi games was on movement. And that's not to say that it has less options than before, I don't think that's the case. But the new short dash actually costs meter. And the thing is, if you're used to Tenkaichi, you're used to this not costing any key at all. So I was constantly starving. This is not necessarily a good or a bad thing, it's just something that I didn't feel in other Tenkaichi games that you will probably feel as well when you pick this up. You are just out of meter all the time. Now, over the next couple of days, I will be sharing all of my gameplay uncut. The only reason I get invited to stuff like this is because you guys watch my videos, and so I think you deserve to see every punch that I captured, every fail that I did, every single second. So make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss that. But this demo had a total of 50 characters to choose from, which again, I wasn't going to be able to cover in just 4 games. But this is why I think it's also going to be fun for me to watch what the other guys captured. So make sure you check out Dorodoya, Afro Senju, Syriax, Games Cage, Nanogenix, and Dukalba, and I hope I am not forgetting anyone, but I probably am. But if you want to learn everything there is to know about Sparking Zero from this event, you'll probably need to watch all of them. 30 minutes was just not enough time to see everything, not even close. That said, it was enough time to reveal 2 new characters. I wouldn't worry too much about this character select screen, by the way. It's probably not final, but you can see adult Gohan Super Saiyan is selectable here. We previously only had base form and Super Saiyan 2, so that's an obvious but nice confirmation. And we also have Dr. Gero. I didn't play him, but there he is, and there's his move list too. That said, here are some details that I discovered while playing that others may have not picked up on. This is the portion of the video that's probably the most unique to my experience, even if you've already watched the other creators. First of all, they've got 2 control schemes this time around. Standard is the brand new scheme. It feels like a modern take on Tenkaichi. Reminds me a bit of Xenoverse actually. And you also have the classic controls, which emulate classic Tenkaichi as close as possible. I tried both schemes and it was a mistake. I should have just stuck to classic. It just messed with my brain. But both of them feel like they're missing just the one thing. Like Standard has B for perception. It just feels like B could be a better button. So while I appreciate having 2 control schemes, having full customization of controllers would actually be the best possible option. In addition to the control schemes, this game is taking a page out of the Storm Connections book and letting you enable or disable all kinds of assists. So you got combo assists, counter assists, blocking assists. If you just want to mash square and win the game, you can turn all of this stuff on if you'd like. I can't tell you how helpful it is. I played with everything off all the time. And for those of you that want to see how non-flying characters will play, I did try out Mr. Satan. Basically, he has infinite jumps, and then he starts slowly floating down whenever you stop midair. He can still vanish though. Mr. Satan can surely schmove. And overall, I do feel like combos specifically are a bit slower than they used to be. And that's what I meant earlier by saying this feels like a heavier Tenkaichi. But that wasn't the case for every character, because when Berter came on screen, the dude was just flying. And I love that characters can feel that difference between each other. There are going to be a lot of characters that kind of feel the same in this game. So the more unique characters like this game has, the more impressive the roster actually is. And I also found out something about the World Tournament arena. First of all, it does have that green hue coming off the ground at all times. I don't know why. That looks super ugly in my opinion. First thing I tried in this arena was to ring out Tien, which as you can clearly see, there's no ring outs. So maybe they're an option you can disable, or they straight up don't exist. Either way, this demo did not have ring outs. But something really cool that happened was after Tien does his super, the announcer gets scared, everyone evacuates the stage, and the stands become empty. This is more than just a cutscene, by the way, because now the stage is much bigger than before. You may notice here that we're fighting completely outside the arena now. We are in the surrounding areas, and the stands have just become destructible too, which just goes to show how much can actually be destroyed in this game. But that's about all that I found with my time. I can't wait to see what the other creators found too. Now, is this the perfect Dragon Ball game? No. I think it can become one of the best 3D Dragon Ball games of all time, and that is quite the achievement. But I did run into a lot of jank, and honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if this game came out very buggy, because the jank I found doesn't seem to be super easy to fix. But luckily, it's also nothing game-breaking. It's stuff like camera collision with the ground. If your opponent is flying and you're on the ground, you're gonna see through the ground. It's a typical camera issue in 3D games. There's also this recovery super dash bug, where your character just gets stuck in this awkward position. It happened twice during my 30 minutes. One of them was the CPU doing it. Look at Krillin right there. And in general, the game has some trouble tracking enemies vertically. Even though you're locked on, you might just not see them because the camera isn't designed to keep up. So even with a lock on, you can lose your enemy pretty easily. I can see people taking advantage of this in PvP for sure. But in general, I'm really happy with what I played. But most of all, with what I learned. Knowing all the single player content this game's gonna have, and the confirmation of split screen the community wanted so much, this will be a Dragon Ball game for the ages. There's probably more stuff in this footage, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss when we go through all of it. But for today, that's all that my COVID voice can handle. And I recorded this whole thing without a mask, which means you now all have COVID too. Thanks for watching. Bye.